All right, so let us look at some questions together. This is the section 3 no calculator section. So here we have 103 equals 8x plus 9 is given. And as you can see, 4x plus 4 is what we're looking for. Then what is the relationship? Wait a minute. Those two seems to be very similar, except that 8x plus 9 is not quite double of 8x plus 4. We can rewrite that as ax plus 8, which is double, plus 1. And then we get to realize that 8x plus 8 must be equal to 1 or 2. And then we get the half of that, therefore our answer should be 51. All right, let's move on to the next question. So here we have the coordinate 1 comma negative 1 is a solution. Now, one thing that which we can do is we can graph all 4 sets of them, but it's going to take us a really long time. So what we're going to do is simply plug in 1 and negative 1 in place of x and y. So for example, we have additions, so we have x. When you add them up, x plus y, that means we are adding 1 and negative 1. 1 plus negative 1 should be equal to 0. So then the first one is okay. On the other hand, x minus y, which means 1 minus negative 1, will be in fact equal to 2. But they said less than or equal to 0, which is not correct. But the b, when you look at that, that should be correct because whether you subtract, then it's positive. When you add them up, that's equal to 0. That satisfies the condition in choice B. All right, let's look at the next question here. So here we have R is the perpendicular to line S. And then line R goes through those 2 points. So I'm trying to sketch those 2 points here. That's negative 10. And then that's, okay, so we have drawn those 2 lines. Purple one is the line R, and then the blue one is line S. So once you try to find the slope of the purple line, we can see the slope has to be 1/2 because going up is 5, and then horizontal change is 10. And so we get 1/2 x plus 5. Y-intercept was 5. Now, but the thing is, blue line, which is line S, slope has to be negative reciprocal, but going through the origin, so equation would have been y equals negative 2x. Now, when you combine them together, set them equal to each other, then we'll end up getting negative 2x must be equal to 1/2 x plus 5. Now, what we can do is we can try to find the value of x by solving it, but this is a relatively easy equation. So we can plug in any one of those values in place of x, or actually solving for x. Either way is perfectly fine. But you know that in this case, negative 2, when you plug them in, it will work out to be correct. So therefore, negative 2 would be our answer. All right, let's move on to the next question. So here, square root of g of g plus 3 is equal to x, and then g is equal to 3x plus 1. So notice that g is common between both equations. So then, what we're going to be doing is solving for g from the above equation. So we get x minus 3 is what we end up getting. To have g by itself, we have to square both sides. Then we get to see x minus 3 entire thing squared. So now what we can do is we can have that to be equal to 3x plus 1 from given equation right over here. So you can try to plug in one number at a time. When you plug in 1, when you plug in 3, or you'll realize that when you plug in 8, it should be correct values. Now, so that's basically what we can do. Another thing which you could have done is you could have actually expanded this one, and then realize that x squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to 3x plus 1, and bring everything onto one side. Then we get x squared minus 9x plus 8 should be equal to 0. Then you know that x can be factored into x minus 8 and x minus 1 would be equal to 0. Hence, 1 or 8 would have been the answer, but the thing is they say greater than 1, as you can see over here, so 8 is the only answer. That's another way of doing it as well. All right, now, let's look at this question, number 5. So when you read this one, it's all coming from y equals mx plus b, where b is the fixed value or y-intercept, and m is the slope or the rate, change of y over change of x. So now n, we can see that is the number of crayons, and then c is the crayons itself. Then we are looking for -3. -3 is essentially the ratio between the crayons over classes. Which one of them has that? Crayons over classes. All right. So when you look at choice D, number of crayons that are used up or lost, whatever their reasoning might have been, by the entire class. Therefore, choice D becomes the answer. Comparison between those two. All right, let's look at number 6 together. Now we have 4x squared minus 35, and remember, we always have to look at the entire choices as well. And most of them, it seems like they look very similar to the difference of squares. In order for us to have the difference of squares, something that's closest to 4x squared minus 35 would have been 4x squared minus 36. But in order for us to make this one equal to the given, we have to add 1 to that. Then when you look at it, wait a minute, 4x squared minus 36, that looks like a difference of perfect squares. So if you have to factor that, then square root of 4x squared becomes 2x, and square root of 36 becomes 6, which gives us A as our answer. 2x plus 6 and 2x minus 6. All right, let's move on to the next question. So now, actually number 7, this one should have been written as length, by the way. All right, so when you read through, you will realize that this is the formula for calculating the length of the arc given angle in degrees. So we realize that angle has to be less than 120, but we're just going to assume that it is equal to 120 and then compare them together. So now, then what we end up getting is 120 in place of theta, pi d, which we are looking for, over 360, should be compared to pi, because that's what they said. Length of the arc is pi. Now, then pi cancels out, and then cancels out 120 and then 360, and we realize that d would have been equal to 3, so that everything would be satisfied. But since 120 is, in fact, the angle is not quite 120, but the angle is less than 120. Therefore, D has to be, or the diameter has to be greater than 3 to compensate for that. That gives us choice 4. 4 as our answer. How about number 8? We're going to rewrite this one because they have the same base. Then we can rewrite it as a to the x squared plus 4x plus 4 is the exponent, is equal to a to the 9th power. Then you can see that that portion, those two exponents has to be equal to each other because bases are equal to each other as well. When you factor that, we get to realize x plus 2 squared is equal to 9. Then when you take the square root of it, x plus 2 must be equal to plus or minus 3. So then x must be equal to -2 by subtracting 2, plus or minus 3. And one of the answers will be -2 plus 3, because what we are looking for is positive, which is choice B. All right, let's look at the next question. All right, so here h is a parallel to the line that's graphed already. And then h happened to go through the 0, comma -3, then that is in fact y-intercept here. What is the x value of the x-intercept of the line h? But here, before we continue, you have to realize the slope. Y-intercept is 3 and x-intercept is 9. So you get to realize the slope must be -1/3 because change in y is 3 and change of x is equal to 9. 3 over 9, which is the same thing as 1/3. But since it's going down, the slope has to be negative. Now, then our equation is y equals 1/3 x, and we know the y-intercept, which was -4/3. And then in place of y, to find the x-intercept, that means y has to be equal to 0. So we are plugging in 0 for y and then trying to find the value of x. Then by adding 1/3 x to both places, then on our left side we get x over 3, and then on our right side -4/3. Then you can see that by comparison, x must be equal to -4. So choice A becomes the answer. All right, let's move on to the next question, number 10. Now, which of the following equation has a graph in xy plane that y is always less than or equal to 6? So if I were to just sketch it a little bit, imagine that line that I just drew what to be 6. It has to be less than or equal to, so it has to be below that line. That's basically what we're looking for. Then let us try to examine one graph at a time. The first one, y equals x squared plus 6. Since y-intercept is 6, it starts from 6 and it goes up because concavity is positive. And of course, that's not what we're looking for. Second one, negative x squared plus 36. Then y-intercept is 36, so we have to start way on top and then coming down. That's not going to be it either. The number C is that y minus 6, that's in fact horizontal shift to the right by 6 units. So we're going to have an absolute value graph that goes out this way. Lastly, we have y equals negative absolute value of x plus 6. So then we know that y-intercept is 6, and then it's going to come down this way. So our answer is choice D. All right, let's move on to the next question. Number 11. So we have decay by 15%. Initial value is 125. So what are we talking about? In fact, we are looking for exponential growth or decay. Then the function is initial value times 1 plus r to the t power. Of course, I just generally put down plus sign, but if you have to be decay, then it will be minus. So essentially what we end up getting is 125 is the initial value times 1 minus 0.15 because that's the decay. Then we get to realize that choice C is essentially what we're looking for. Number 12. So we are looking for what is the absolute distance between x of 1 and x of 2. Then essentially what we're looking for is x of 1 minus x of 2. And given that x of 1 is greater, that's essentially what we're looking for. One thing that which we can do is this. What if we were to write up the quadratic formula? So one with plus and one with minus. As you can see what I'm doing right over here. And then we're going to subtract one from the other. And that's essentially what we are doing in terms of x of 1 and x of 2. Subtraction between those two values. Now, then since now they have the same denominator, whatever is common will be cancelled out due to the subtraction. So negative b will be cancelled out. Then what we end up getting is, with the negative over there, we end up getting that to be positive. So we get not square root of b squared minus 4ac, but we have 2 of those. And divide whole thing by 2a. Then 2's cancels out. So what we end up getting is b squared minus 4ac divided by a. So b was equal to -8. and filling up the chart, and then a is equal to 1. So once you calculate this one, negative 8 squared becomes 64 minus 16, then square root of 48. But that can be simplified into 4 square root of 3. Hence choice D becomes the answer. Alright, how about number 13? Number 13, they're asking us to simplify this one and then find the real part, which is the value A. Alright, so we can simplify this one by multiplying top and bottom by its conjugate, which is 5x minus 3i, top and bottom. Then on the denominator, we will end up getting 25 minus 9i squared, which is the difference of squares. On the other hand, in case of the numerator, we actually have to distribute all the terms. Then we get 25, and then like this above. So let us try to simplify this one. 25, and then we have minus 25i by combining two imaginary parts, and minus 6i, or I mean minus 6, because I squared is equal to negative. And then 25 minus I squared becomes positive. And then our final answer is 19 minus 25i over 34. Then what's the real part? 19 over 34, which is choice C. That becomes the answer. Number 14. From these two given equations, what they're looking for is they want us to gives m. They want us to solve for m in terms of x, y, and then b sub 2. Then what we have to do is the first equation, that's the equation which we have to manipulate. And to have m by itself, we have to first subtract b minus b sub 2. Then we get negative x over m. Now, to get rid of negative sign, we're going to multiply by negative 1 on both sides. Then instead of b sub 2 become negative, now it becomes positive. So we end up getting something like this one. Notice the sign changed from here to here. And then x over m. Now, to isolate m by itself in proportion, what I can do is I can cross interchange the values from the proportion. So b sub 2 minus y can be exchanged with m. Then m will be equal to x over b sub 2 minus y. Choice A becomes the answer. Alright, let's move on to the next question. X is not equal to negative 1/2, so that the fractions will be defined. And what's the average? Then what we have to do is we just have to add them up and then divide that by 2. So let us try to add first. Then denominators are the same, 2x plus 1. First one is 8x plus 1. But second one becomes 4, has to be rewritten as 4 times of 2x plus 1, which is 8x plus 4, and then plus 3 from the second part. Then if you have to combine everything together, then we'll end up getting 2x plus 1 as my denominator. And my numerator becomes 16x from combining the x's and plus 8. Then you get to realize that they will cancel each other out and becomes 8. But what I'm looking for is the average, so I have to divide 8 by 2. Then our answer would be 4. Alright, let's look at number 16. An isosceles right triangle has a hypotenuse that measures. When they say isosceles right triangle, we're going to talk about that very soon. That it's a special right triangle, actually. And then we have 50 radical 2 is the length of the hypotenuse. And then in the similar triangle, which must be then isosceles right triangle as well, has the longest side, which means hypotenuse, the length of the 5 square root of 8. So if you have to try to simplify that further, square root of 8 is 2 radical 2. Then we get to realize that 10 square root of 2 is what we are looking for. I mean, what the hypotenuse would have been. Since it's an isosceles right triangle, we know the ratio, which is 1, 1, radical 2. By comparing, radical 2 should be comparable to 10 radical 2 here. So then the other two sides must be equal to 10 each. Then our final answer will be 20. Is the sum of the its shorter two sides. Number 17. So Mr. Waterman has the $5, $10, and $25 gift certificate, and total has to add up to 55, and they have to get one of each kind at least. Then let us assume that each one of the nephew has one of each for now. How much of gift certificate do they have at this point? 1, 5, 1, 10, and 1, 25. When you combine them together, the total value goes up to $40. That means from 55, we are looking at $15 more of the gift certificate has to be distributed in form of 5 or 10. Now, what if everything was in terms of 5? Then that will get us the maximum number of gift cards for $5, which will be 4. Because $15 divided by 5, that means 3, which it already had one card already, that means totally becomes 4 $5 gift certificates. On the other hand, in order for that to be a minimum, so 15 has to be broken down into least number of 5 as possible. Since we don't have $15 bill, it's going to be broken down into 5 and then 5 and 10. Then instead of 1, now we have 2 $5. Instead of 1, now I have 2 $10, and then difference becomes 2 between 4 and 2. All right, let's move on to the next question. Now number 18. AB is equivalent to 5 radical 2. And then BC is equivalent to 10. And then we're looking for the angle ACB. So then, how are we going to get that angle? Now, since we know that to be the right angle over here, and you can in fact tell that this triangle must be isosceles right triangle, 1, 1, radical 2. You see it fits the 2 format, 1 and the radical 2 here. Then since we end up having isosceles right triangle, then the measure of the angle is 45 degrees, or in radian measures, it's going to be pi over 4. It has to be between, in terms of h pi, that means h must be equal to 1/4. That becomes our answer. Number 19. Alright, they say infinitely many solutions. What does that mean? In order for our two equations to have infinitely many solutions, they essentially have to be equal to each other. Then did you realize that the bottom equation to the top equation, what we end up doing is simply multiplying each side by 5. Then 5a must be equal to a squared. That's what we can conclude here. Then divide by a, then a must be equal to 5. Alrighty. Number 20. We're trying to compare the quadratic binomial squared and then trinomial expanded. So for comparison, what we're going to be doing is we're going to try to expand the left side and see what we end up getting. So 2a plus b, entire quantity squared, so we're just going to rewrite them twice. So as I distribute them, we have 4a squared and then 2BA, and then the last one is B squared. Then by comparison, you should be able to see the values quite nicely. So here it goes. So m must be equal to 4. See, by comparison. And then 4b must be equal to 8. Then b must be equal to 2. B squared must be equal to q. Then what is b? B was equal to 2. So b squared becomes 2 square. And then q is the value that you will be getting by squaring 2. So q will be equal to 4. So once you multiply all three of them, then we'll end up getting 32. That's our answer. All right, we'll stop here, and I'll see you later.